final report on the federal and state elections of 25th February and 18th March. According to the EU, the election exposed enduring systemic weaknesses and therefore signal a need for further legal and operational reforms to enhance transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability. For a better election, the EU offered 23 recommendations, with 6 of the 23 being the top priority. Let's look at the 6 they recommended. 1, remove ambiguities in the law. 2, establish a publicly accountable selection process for INEC members. 3, ensure real-time publication of and access to election results. 4, provide greater protection for media practitioners. 5, address discrimination against women in politics. And 6, address impunity regarding electoral offenses. Meanwhile, the federal government has rejected the EU's 2023 Elections Observation Report on Nigeria, saying report is biased, flawed, and born out of inadequate coverage of basically an attempt to ridicule the nation's electoral system and its umpire, INEC. It's on this premise that we are looking at the topic this morning, EU reports on 2023 general elections. And we have 2 guests with us. In-house, we have Akin Akitoye, the CEO, Gulf Media. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akim.
And of course, joining us via Zoom from Owodeyewa is a lawyer, Kehinde Hassan Bamiwola. Kehinde Hassan Bamiwola.
Good morning, of course, and good morning, viewers.
All right, let us start from here. Kehinde, you had all this personally. There have been a lot of why some people align with the EU report. Some are saying, what is the interest in EU? Some are saying it is not what they are just trying to malign Nigeria, blah, blah, blah. But as a person who has been following this issue, what's your impression about the EU's report?
Well, I think it's a well-done report. Some people are trying to discard it as a poorly done desk job. If I may do a little bit of unpacking, number one, I think the federal government should actually support the report in terms of perception management. If you look at what former President Yaradua did, he said, the election that brought me into power is largely flawed. That does not mean that he will be dethroned or removed from power, but it shows the fact that he's being honest and he understands that coming with election is supremacy and legitimacy.
And that started the electoral process.
Yes, that brought about the reforms and things like even the PVCs, things like even the beavers were predicated on such a honest and sincere opinion of even the #1 beneficiary of a flawed election. So I think if the handlers of APC or the handlers of the government of the day understand what perception management is all about, they don't have any reason to fight the EU report. This is the first time that we see something that is not new becoming news. It is said that if it is not new, it is not news. But the EU report is not new, because our local election observers have come up with very similar, very reflective set of observations in their own report. And now it's reverberating, it's becoming news every day, it's something we are regurgitating, something we are thinking about. Why? Because truth is a constant. Truth will never go away. And so when you think that, okay, something has happened, I don't believe that President Tinubu will have lost the election if it has been better done, if it had been more transparent. It will give him more credibility. So I think his managers should also join the crusade to say the INEC has not done a very good job. It doesn't mean that if they have done a very good job, they will have lost the election. The I in INEC, the independency, the accountability, the transparency, these are the things that are being called to questions. Leading to the elections, the EU made several reports. Leading to the election, the EU came in September, they came in November. Then they settled down January 11 to about April 11.
And of course, INEC invited them.
Beautiful. And if you watch what Mr. Andrews said in his report, that's the head of the European Union Monitoring Observation Nation 2023. If you look at the way the nuances, the verbiage that he deliberately used, he started by thanking and appreciating the Nigerian government, INEC, and the fact that they were invited. That is, their support was solicited. And don't forget, Nigeria as a government has signed the United Nations Electoral Declaration and Observation policies that says that we can call for assistance, for aid, for help from other observation or monitoring teams all over the world. So they were solicited, their services were implored, and so they came on that note. And don't forget, there were certain financial benefits that we also got, and we didn't complain when they gave us financial aids. When they assisted us in other ways, we didn't complain. Now they've come up with a very robust report, and 6 of those reports, they tagged it priority recommendation, meaning 6. That urgently, for legitimacy, for good governance, this thing should be addressed. And I think they should not be discarded.
But the report was not all about the flaws. There are some
excellent.
The introduction was even about the eagerness, the commitment of Nigerians to that election, that Nigerians were ready. Anyway, let's hear from Barrister Bariwola. Your impression?
Thank you very much. And of course, let me thank my friend who is on this program with us together this morning. However, some people, including viewers, may be surprised at my submission this morning, especially those who have the belief that Bariwola is always against government, is always against whatever Nigeria is doing. I'm going to sound differently. I am going to sound differently this morning based on the European Union report on our election. In the first place, I asked questions that I will raise, and if at the end of this program we are unable to find answer to those questions, it means that report should be rejected in totality.
Okay.
But if we can find positive answers to the questions that I will raise here, then we'll accept the report in totality. And let me just lay these foundational premises. I am not saying their recommendations are bad. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry who has proper knowledge about the social engineering aspect of life should be talking about something giving the female gender opportunity, no discrimination, and what have you. But for a union, European Union, the people who actually colonize us, the people who make us for a number of years, the people who came, bastardized our culture and replaced it with their own, the people who did all sorts of things from 1843 until they forcefully left in 1960. They did the same thing in the Francophone countries. They did the same thing in the Portuguese too. Now, to stay somewhere, maybe in Lagos or Port Harcourt or Abuja, and form an opinion over 974 polling units. 176,974 polling units. I was an election observer for the Nigerian Bar Association. Although I am not empowered to speak for NBA, NBA has its own report. Now, EU, they have come with their own report condemning the whole election. That is where I will start from. The first question that I will raise is this. Even in the United States, in UK, talk about other countries. Do we have any perfect election? Do you have any system that has guaranteed an election that will not be challenged in court? The matter of whether or not this election is marred with fraud or with anything is already pending before the court. Why not wait until the decision of the court made over the election on who wins the election before giving this report that, to me, is, in fact, they are the ones that are biased. I want to support federal government on one side this morning, that report is biased. That report is capable of setting the entire nation on fire. And how do I mean? In social science, my background is in economics before reading law. There are two methods of testing hypothesis before you formulate. Two methods. We have the induction, which is based on inductive reasoning, and we have the deduction. Under induction, you use to generalize. In a country of over how many billions of people, and I've mentioned the number of polling units, how many polling units did they go to? Because I am very, very sure, I did my election observation in Egbado North, that's Yewa North now, by virtue of the Constitutional Amendment. How many polling units did they go to in Yewa North? How many polling units did they go to in Yewa South? In Ijebu, Ode Ijebu, Remo, in Abeokuta North, Abeokuta South. How many polling units? Go to Benue, go to all these places. I am of the opinion that apart from their recommendation, which I want to agree with him, sometimes somehow robust, that okay, they are normal thing that anybody, I can sit in my office here and write recommendation. But their report, I want to believe, and I want to submit this morning, that in they use induction particular to generalize, I would have expected them to apply the deduction in forming their hypothesis. Deduction means you now use substantive part of the general, okay, to now make your own generalization. For them to condemn the whole thing, saying it was all elections, I want to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, I've been voting in Nigeria from 1979 to date. And there is no election. In fact, the one in 1979 between Awolowo and Shagari, Kayode Ocho of blessed memory, where the argument came over two-thirds, what should be the two-thirds of 19 states. Kayode Ocho, Justice of Supreme Court, said something. When they were arguing, they called this mathematician from Anambra to come and do some calculation. He said, one with God is majority. 1979, it was challenged. After 1979, are you now talking about 1993, the one that was aborted? When we came to democracy in 1999, it was challenged. The election there was challenged. President Yar'Adua said, well, it was smart. American elections, they've been challenged, and other countries. That report should be rejected in totality. That report is not a representation of deductive reasoning. That report is biased. The third question that I want to raise is this. They call themselves European Union. What has the African Union said? It is high time we stop relying on people from other world, other continent to be deciding what to happen in Nigeria for us. European Union, not African Union. When are we going to allow Africans to provide solutions to African problems? Why should anybody rely on that report? Why not rely on reports that will come from African Union or from West Africa, if they are ECOWAS Union? That report is selfish. That report is economically interest. In fact, is set out their economic interest. That report is not based on deduction.
Okay, Barrister, thank you. We will still come back to you.
I've heard a lot that you said. You're so passionate about this particular issue. But let me ask, some people are of the opinion that the president shouldn't have been bothered. After all, he didn't conduct the election. He was a candidate. So what's your take on that?
The what?
That the President Tinubu shouldn't have been bothered. The APC shouldn't have been bothered. The presidency shouldn't have been bothered. After all, it was President Buhari that conducted the election. You know, it was during his term. So why that reaction from the APC, from the presidency?
Of course, you have the answer.
It was a candidate.
You have the answer yourself. In politics, according to Harold Aswe, politics is about who gets what, how, and when. Whatsoever is going to be, that report of course affects President Tinubu very well, because if, God forbid, if that report stir up reaction that is massive to the extent that the entire nation is thrown into crisis, will his government not be affected? It should affect him. That's number one. Number two, he has his interest to protect too. He is not the one who conducted the election. That is the business of INEC. And the main point is this: the matter is already in court. Why bring in a report when you know that court is going to give judgment about the entire election? And as President Tinubu said, if the court decides otherwise, it's not going to leave.
But why did the court to accept it?
I have seen that report as something that is too premature. Wait, let the court decide who wins the election before you can now say whether it is this or that. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry knows that majority of what is happening in Nigeria, in fact, we have to stomach something for the progress of this country. And in law, there is what we call public policy test. We have the repugnancy test, we have the incompatibility test, we have the public policy test. For public policy orientation, we want peace in this country. And somebody is not bringing a report that, oh, EU, is it African Union that has said something? And let me raise another question.
Let's quickly come back to Akintoye. He said the court, it shouldn't have been the EU. To him, the EU is taking the side of the federal government, that the EU is biased, and the EU shouldn't have released the report at this time when the case is in court. But I want to ask, why did the court to accept it as a temporary exhibit?
Okay, so my brother, Mr. Kendi Azan, I think you've been very, very emotional, and you have not empirically tackled the submission of the EU report. I have read through the report and I've listened to it over and over again. There are empirical facts that cannot be questioned. Should I quickly tell you one of it that I've not even been seeing on social media or on any media? One of it is the fact that a certain man who contested the election, the presidential election, against the Constitution, still find himself back in the Senate. This was a specific, and this was contained in the EU report. The EU report succinctly and specifically stated that there was gross impunity. You have not been able to refute this, that, okay, there wasn't impunity. Because you sounded very scientific, I will just toe that part a little bit. Meaning that there's what is called the test of universality. That is, for a chair to be a chair in Abeokuta, it should also be a chair in the United States or in Jakarta, Indonesia. So for something to be a pen in Abeokuta or in Itoku, it should also be a pen in China. Leading to the election, there were certain promises. The unprecedented nature of the budgets ascribed and given to INEC to prepare an election with promises. These promises becomes policies. They are expectation. Expectation is to back manifestation. You told us that there will be electronic transmission of result real time. Now, that was not done in the presidential election. And people have been coming to say just the presidential election. When the fish will rotten, it will start from the egg. It's very, very critical. And I'm saying this not to antagonize the coming to power of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but to say that people like you and the handlers of government should also tackle seriously INEC. Let me quickly say this before I forget, that the EU has been submitting reports. This is just the final report. So the timing would not be of an essence because they have always been submitting reports. Okay, now let me quickly say this. So there's serious expectation, and all this was swept under the carpet on one word: technical glitches. If you take your phone there and send me a message on WhatsApp, and the message refused to deliver, you are going to get a receipt on your WhatsApp status that says failed, or you are going to see that I did not read it. There's no tech-oriented person that will accept such a trivial excuse for the reason why a presidential election where billions, hundreds of billions of naira had been dedicated, allocated and budgeted, will accept such trivial excuse as technical glitches. If you watch what happened in Adamawa, these are the things that were contained in the report, and the EU report was succinctly correct and honest. They talk about inclusivity. They talk about women participation. They talk about the fact that the youth came out in their droves, in numbers. They gave specifics. And so I agree with you that we cannot become subservient to the European Union. But don't forget, the transmission, the way you're able to listen to me, the way I'm able to see you all the way from where you are, is as a result of us imbibing and taking from the culture of developed countries. And so in palliatives and in coronavirus, we got some of these vaccinations from these developed countries, and we don't hate them for it, and we don't criticize them for it. I believe that the European Union has not done anything offensive to our sovereignty as a nation. They have not subjugated us in any way. They've only come up with empirical fact. And going forward, I will want you, sir, to mention specifically what is contained in the European Union that was false, that was a lie, that does not follow the principle of empirical analysis and hypothesis. And I will submit to your superior argument.
No. Let
me ask this question. You react alongside. Let me just ask this question, Mr. Kennedy Hazan Bamiwola. You are a legal person, and of course, one of the 6 priorities of EU says remove ambiguities in the law. Are there ambiguities in the law?
Let me start by reacting first. I appreciate what my friend here is saying, but I want to take him up on something. He mentioned the word empirical, which means, according to him, the report was based on empirical analysis. And I throw this question to him anytime he wants to react. He should react to this, my question. Did they use inductive method of reasoning to compile their report, or do they use deduction? Your answer will determine what I will say in reaction to that answer. If somebody will sit somewhere, this country is very, very wide. I was expecting you to tell us that their report, they compiled it from at least 2/3 of 36 states. Let them show us the statistics out of the 170, close to 177,000 polling units. How many did they go to? That is number one. Then you raise another issue about somebody who didn't contest an election and they found himself in the Senate.
Okay.
Are you aware that although Supreme Court said that Meshia Nomerua should not be a precedent of any law court in determining who and who? I am not going to the merit of Meshia Nomerua, which in actual sense, political parties have power to submit names of candidates. And by the way, are you aware, or are you not in the know that even the issue that you raise is before the court? Any matter that is before the court, we on our own side as legal practitioners, we are precluded from making any statement that can influence the judiciary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bambola, thank you very much. Thank you. I think you have made your reaction. Mr. Bambola, hello, Mr. Bambola. I think you have made your reaction. Now, as a legal practitioner, I have asked you, the EU said remove ambiguities in the law. Are there ambiguities in our electoral law?
There was, let me answer this. There was a time, I can't remember before the election, I think it was a program anchored by Mr. Abeokuta Alabi, that I dissected the present electoral act. It was the issue of when, what do they call it, placeholding came on board that the president chose someone to be the placeholder before Shettima was there. And I dissected everything. Let me tell you this. The intention of lawmakers, whenever that intention is misread, there will be ambiguity. And what the courts do is to interpret the law and clear ambiguities. To you, I may be reading a law if I am the lawmaker, there may not be ambiguity to it. But somebody who is trying to apply or use that law in a particular court may see ambiguity. He will now apply to the court to clear the ambiguity. I will not give you a yes or no answer. Ambiguity may be in the law. It is the duty of the court to clear the ambiguity and say, oh, this is an ambiguity. And that is why the Evidence Act, which Nigeria is using now, there is a point, a place there, I think from section 221, that we call re-examination. Anytime ambiguity is created, the law allows whosoever, the adverse party, to clear the ambiguity. Yes, that's the point that the ambiguity should be clear. Is a function of the canons of interpretation. We have 4 canons in Nigeria. We have the golden rule, we have the literal rule, we have the justice generis rule, and we have the one we call mischief rule. So the judges are there to apply the 4 canons of interpretation of law to check whether there is ambiguity or not. What we have said, to the best of my knowledge, yes, everybody should strive hard to remove ambiguity from our law, because ambiguity will occasion injustice. Not just injustice of the highest order, but there is nobody. Even under IDF international law, I am an expert in international comparative labor law. If you check many of the laws, you still see ambiguity. Let me point one to you. Are you aware that Article 4 of ILO Convention 158 of 1982 says that nobody should terminate any employment without reason? That to Nigeria here, that is an ambiguity because Nigeria has now ratified the International Labour Organization Convention. In South Africa, where they have ratified, it may not be an ambiguity. So to them, any law under international law, which by virtue of Section 12 of the Nigerian Constitution are not applicable here until the National Assembly ratify that law and domesticate it. So ambiguity will always be there. But as lawyers, we always fight ambiguity, because once it is there, injustice will be occasioned. So I'm waiting for my colleague to tell us what scientific method did they use to reach their conclusion. Is it induction? Because he made use of the word empirical. Is it based on induction? Is it based on deduction? So I'm waiting for his reaction.
All right, thank you. Let me come back to Akakitoye. One of the criticism against this report is especially from the federal government, and of course emphasized by the lawyer, that the report is born out of inadequate coverage. I begin to look at that and begin to say, is there anywhere where election observers have done more than what these EU people have done in terms of coverage? Is there anywhere there will be an election observers and that they will cover, say, up to 80% of the? I mean, is it not part of research that you just choose flashpoints and see what has happened there to now be able to generate your report? So what have they done wrong here? What are they trying to make us understand when they say it is born out of inadequate coverage?
Okay, I think they told the same part with Mr. Kehinde Hassan. Whatever is particular is also general. And so that is on the basis. This is the 21st century. He cannot be physically present with us today in the studio. His voice is heard. He has made his impact. He has educated people. He has touched people. He has galvanized a thought pattern, and he's not physically present here. And so it would be wrong for any one of us to say he sat there in Owode and he's saying that what they are doing in OGTV and no. The EU brought in about 50 observers. This is the 21st century. This is the tech times. And so for them to know what is going on in Abeokuta, they just need a Surface Pro, a computer, or their phones. They get real-time supply of information.
They don't have to be physically present
in every part of
Nigeria.
They don't have to be physically present.
And they can achieve that.
And when he said something that I must not shy away from, he was telling us, or asking me specifically, if the EU has used an empirical, has used a deductive methodology, or deductive or now, let me explain something. The EU followed the United Nations methodology for election observation, which is not trying to subjugate Africans, which is not trying to reduce us. That is one. Two, now, you don't tell me that I cannot tell a toddler not to jump into the pool because I'm not a certified lifeguard. These are the things that are going on. Many of the times we try to apportion or arrogate certain powers to ourselves because it's in the areas of our speciality. What the European Union has done is to observe. What does it mean to observe? To look, to glance at, to take a glare at something. For example, a video has been sent to me. I check if this video has been doctored. Once I put it on the timeline of the Adobe Premiere, I'm sure all the cameramen here knows what I'm talking about. We check the BITs, we can see that, okay, there's no alteration in the audio sequence and in the virtual flow. Then we can ascertain that this video has not been doctored. It does not take rocket science anymore. It does not take deductions anymore. It is observation, what you have observed. If I observe somebody physically abusing a girl, I don't need DNA. So he's a very good lawyer. This is how you know a brilliant lawyer. I've seen the way that it's very difficult to hold him here. Very brilliant lawyer, and then he goes to prejudice if we talk about what is going on in the court. But what the European Union has just done is to say, I observe that such and such a thing has done. But what a good lawyer will say, okay, can we have the DNA test of how that this person abused this person? No. Observation, look at something, is green, is black. A good lawyer can begin to now go into the cyan, magenta, and so on and so forth to convince us that that is not green or black. But what the European Union has done is sufficient for us as a nation. And it does, okay, let me quickly land on my point. It does not demerit the emergence of Tinubu. No matter how corrupt a system is, somebody will emerge. So what I'm saying is that the handlers of President Tinubu should separate themselves. They should not see the EU report as attacking them and the process that brought them in. We've seen a president in Yaradua. So I think they should come up to say, look, we are the ones suffering. Let me tell you, that's the truth. The federal government is the one suffering from the charade that INEC has done. Why? Because they are the one that need legitimacy, they are the one that need supremacy. So people like Mr. Azan should hammer INEC the more, because to whom much is given, much is expected.
Okay, another area the EU report focused on is that of the collection of PVCs and register, it says lack of reliable and inclusive register and of adequate delivery of PVCs. And you know, even during the election, some people found it difficult to thumbprint, you know. So what is your take on this, Barrister Bamiwola?
Let me just add, Barrister Bamiwola, of course, one of the, just like Muji said, let me just add, is that the report is not too comfortable with the performance of INEC. Barrister Bamiwola, do you still disagree with this as well?
Well, in as much as I have condemned the timing of the report, I am not going to say much about how I feel about that report. The timing, what they are saying now, I'm seeing it from negative point of view. But let me quickly react to what our lady has just raised there. You see something, I agree with my friend on the program that we always talk about the universalities of concept. And that's why we have the word universita. So which was later corrupted to mean university. So is the concept the same everywhere? But however, there are things that report, to me, that's my belief, I may be proved wrong later, never consider. The level of literacy in Western world cannot be compared to the level of literacy in some of the third world countries, especially Nigeria. Where I did my election observation, I saw some old women, men, maybe averagely based on my observation, they should be close to 90. Somebody was aided down there. In fact, when someone was trying to help that mama, say which one, the mama did not even know the logo of any party. He was just mentioning the name of the candidate. Now, when you have a society where illiteracy level is so high, and somebody is coming from a society where literacy level is around 98% or 99%, you come to a society where literacy level should be around, maybe, I don't have the statistics, just think about something, maybe 50% or even 40%. And you want to apply the concept of universality of all concept to your hypothesis formulation, there will be problem. The main issue here is this. Their report, whatsoever they have said, to me, since some of this matter are already in court, I want to repeat myself again, they should have kept it somewhere. Okay? Let these report, let the court decide. But the main issue is this. If you look at what is happening in Nigeria, nobody, in fact, it got to a time that I got an invite from OGTV when the election was coming. I have to stay back and said, oh, before they will now say, Akende Bamiola is an obedient or is a Tinubu or Atiku. Because I am always very, very, well, that is to me objective. Somebody may say I am subjective. I was avoiding saying radio programs invited me, I didn't want to say anything because I am for social justice. What we are saying is this on PVC, some of the things they raise. You know the Nigerian approach. You want to collect PVC, even right from when we were young, you want to collect something until they attach something to it. That if you don't get this, maybe your children will not be allowed to write their exam, or maybe you won't be able to do this. So for that, well, I will support their recommendation. Anytime before election, it shouldn't be even 90 days before election, people should get their PVC well computerized. I want to agree with him on the benefits of IT this time around. I don't need to buy fuel, petrol for 525 naira per liter, about 20,000 naira to come to Abeokuta for me to be heard on TV.
Mr. Bangola, I want you to please, that what the reports and the federal government says it's borne out, I mean, it's also an attempt to ridicule the nation's electoral.
Speaking for INEC, why don't you allow INEC to speak for themselves? Why don't you allow INEC to say, okay, well, we've been taken to court, let us go and defend ourselves first. I will see that, of course, it is interest-based. It's none of their business. But my concern is the multiplier effect. I want to repeat that phrase, multiplier effect of that report on the entire populace. On the entire populace. Number one, if the judiciary is not strong enough, it will create bias in their mind. If AU could say this. Number two, you know we have about 3 major contestants, Labour Party, PDP, and APC. It can create a negative impulse.
Barrister, as a layman, let me just ask this quick question. Are you saying that in the court of law, the EU report is strong enough to be taken there as an exhibit? It's not left for the judge to accept it or not. Please just help me answer that first.
Okay, Uncle. I am not saying it's strong enough, but we are human beings. What we hear influences us. Okay. And that is why lawyers are precluded. Once the matter is in court, you are precluded from going deep. Because imagine if somebody, panelists of the election petition, some of them listening to us, some of them must have read the report, and what have they. We can have what we call the press or the report influence on their mind. We are human beings. This is what I'm saying. Now, on my point 2, I was on point 2. If the party loyalists or the electorate, okay, who voted for the Labour Party or PDP, I don't want to mention the name of the candidate, if they are not well guided as to the multiplier effect of that report, some people may do the unpredictable. And that is why I am saying what I'm saying. I am not saying, and I want to agree with him, that the report has no power on its own to say whether President Tinubu has not won. It's only the court who can say that. But I'm looking at the multiplier effect of that report. There is no system, and that is where I started from. No system is perfect. Even in my office, the way we operate with the number of lawyers, we are not perfect. There are people you quarrel with. There are people you may even sack. But what we are saying is that let prejudices not be created for anybody. That report is not coming from the right quarters.
Okay.
I will have
Thank you.
His point now.
African Union.
His point now is
African
that
Union.
he's not
To
even.
give their report,
He's still talking. Let
I
him
would have
go.
expected ECOWAS to give their report before EU, the people who make Africa, the people who enslave Africa, the people who are indirectly, if I get to their embassy for my visa, let them deny me. The people who created economic catastrophe, the brain behind slave trade, the brain, many of our elections, they are always behind. Now writing what to report. That report my foot.
Yes.
That's my position.
Yes, Nigeria will continue. Barrister, thank you.
Economic interest.
Barrister.
The interest of America in all the Asian countries, in Iran, that report is biased, and I stand by it.
Okay, and yet Nigeria will continue to invite them to monitor elections, just like some other countries here and there. Okay, all right, okay, yeah, Muji, you want to come
Yes,
with
he
the
said
question?
the report is biased, and at the end of the day, he later said, yes, I agree that there is no, there is no perfect system. So I began to wonder, the EU did not just condemn, it did not even condemn in totality. There were some positive sides, commendations. Can we look at that report from that angle too?
Okay, so I've read the report. There was no condemnation of any sort in the report, but there were categorical statements. There were statements that depict corruption. There are statements that describes what should be improved upon. And many of the lacunas in our laws, I was expecting Barrister Bami Rolla to enunciate that. So there was no indictment, so to speak. They were just truth. And I think the problem we are having as Nigerians is the fact that we don't like the truth. If you speak the truth to me and tell me that I have halitosis, my mouth is smelling, I'm likely to feel bad. But what I'm supposed to do is to go and brush again or visit my dentist. What INEC should do going forward is to sit down and say, what have we done wrong? That is one. But let me quickly say this. Many of the times we think professors will solve our problems. And that was also indirectly contained in the report, the selection of the people that man our electoral election and all of that.
Yeah.
Now, professorship simply means that you sat enough in the academics, and then you are rewarded for time in the class. After a while, PhD is the highest educational attainment anybody can get. But when you stay long enough within the four walls of the universities, you become a professor. It does not mean competencies.
I agree.
And so you have people who are administrators, who are lawyers, who are bankers, who are what have you, that can adequately man our elections. And so another thing that Mr. Bamiwola has not said is the fact that he has said he's not a tech person, but I think he should have condemned the INEC excuse of lack of electronic transmission. If there's anything that single-handedly there's a spoiler to this election.
That bloods the election.
Yes, single-handedly. If not, we will have been able to say no election is perfect, which is true. The US election isn't perfect, French election isn't perfect. But when it comes to the fact that there was no technical explanation, convincing explanation to the fact that the elections could not be transmitted electronically. It smells.
Despite multiple assurances before the election.
Exactly. And one of the reasons why 92 new voters came out to register was the fact that now our vote is going to count. And now that is a spoiler that cannot be swept under the carpet.
Thank you very much. I don't know, our time is fast spent. Barrister Bamiwola, I mean, thank you very much for being part of. Are you still there? Just your last shot. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. We have to go. 30 seconds. Your last shot before we go.
Well, I want to tell everybody that let's wait for the outcome of the election petition tribunal. Okay. Let them decide whosoever is going to be the winner. For some of the issues that he raised, I want to appeal to him, that my friend too, that let's wait for the courts, the petition tribunals to decide.
Okay. Thank you very much. And of course, just 20 seconds for you, Akin. How are you going to wrap up this?
I think that going forward, our elections should not always end in the courts. We can end our elections at the thumb print of everybody that have come out to cast their votes. Thank you.
Because even by the mistake of the umpire, somebody who won originally could still be upturned in court.
Exactly.
I agree with you. All right, that's how it's going to be on this part of the discussion. EU report on 2023 general elections. Akin Akintoye, CEO, Gulf Media, thank you very much for coming to the program. And of course, Kehinde Hassan Bamiwola, a legal practitioner all the way from Owodeyewa via Zoom. We want to appreciate you so much. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you. All right, we'll take this break. We'll be back.